Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's update on Hurricane Lee. Bon après-midi à tous et bienvenue à cette mise à jour concernant l'ouragan Lee. This afternoon, speakers in the following order. Kyle Levitt, Director of New Brunswick Emergency Measures Organization. Pete Lucier, Operations Manager, New Brunswick Emergency Measures Organization. Nicole Poirier, Vice President, Operations, MB Power. The Honorable Chris Austin, Minister of Public Safety, and the Honorable Blaine Higgs, Premier of New Brunswick. Les porte-paroles aujourd'hui dans l'ordre suivant sont le directeur de l'Organisation des mesures d'urgence du Nouveau-Brunswick, Kyle Levitt, le gestionnaire des opérations de l'Organisation des mesures d'urgence du Nouveau-Brunswick, M. Pete Lucier, la vice-présidente d'opération d'énergie Nouveau-Brunswick, Mlle Nicole Poirier, le ministre de la Sécurité publique, l'Honorable Chris Austin, et le Premier ministre du Nouveau-Brunswick, l'Honorable Blaine Higgs. Avant de céder la parole au directeur Levitt, voulez-vous assurer de désactiver le son de vos micros? Before I turn things over to Director Levitt, I would ask everyone to ensure their microphones are placed on mute. Director Levitt.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thank you all for coming. Hurricane Lee should make landfall in the Maritimes within the next 24 hours. Regardless of where it lands, New Brunswickers need to be prepared. The forecast is calling for gusts up to 120 kilometers per hour and up to 120 millimeters of rain in some areas. Grand Manan and coastal Charlotte County region could bear the brunt of this storm. 4 to 6 meter waves can be expected, and storm surge is a possibility. Saturday could be late to clean up your yard, gutters, buy supplies, or prepare for a 72-hour preparedness kit, or get gas. So please take the time now to do so. Power outages are common among storms like this. If you have a generator, now is the time to make sure that it's in working order. And if you're a new generator owner, now is the time to make sure you know how to properly use it safely. Your actions during the storm are as important as the preparation for it. Once the storm starts, remember, please stay at home if at all possible. Nothing good can come from checking out the big waves and how strong the wind truly is. Not only are you putting yourselves at risk, but you are putting the lives of the emergency services personnel who may have to assist you. Hurricane Lee may bring hazardous driving conditions. Limit your travel to essential purposes in areas of risk and adjust your driving to the road weather conditions. Do the smart thing. Stay home and follow the storm online. The province of New Brunswick has created a web page that has all kinds of useful information, and the URL is gnb.ca/hurricane. Lastly, I would like to thank all of the New Brunswick residents, businesses, municipal governments, and our partners in getting ready for this event. You're playing an essential role in keeping people safe. Thank you very much.
Bonjour. L'ouragan Lee devrait toucher terre dans les Maritimes d'ici 24 heures. Quel que soit son lieu d'arrivée, les Néo-Brunswickois devraient se préparer maintenant. Les prévisions annonçant des rafales pourraient atteindre 120 km/h et 120 mm de pluie dans certaines régions. Grand Manan et la région côtière du comté de Charlotte pourraient être le plus touchés par la tempête. Des vagues de 4 à 6 mètres sont attendues et des ondes de tempête est possible. Samedi, il pourrait être trop tard pour nettoyer votre jardin, vérifier votre gouttière, acheter des fournitures pour une trousse de préparation de 72 heures et faire le plein d'essence. Les pannes d'électricité sont fréquentes lors d'une tempête de ce type. Si vous avez un générateur, c'est le moment de vous assurer qu'il est en bon état. Si vous possédez un nouveau générateur, c'est le moment que vous assurez que vous savez utiliser en toute sécurité. Vos actions pendant une tempête sont aussi importantes que votre préparation avant une tempête. Dès que la tempête commence, restez chez vous. Il n'y a rien bon à vérifier des tailles des vagues ou la force du vent. Non seulement vous vous mettez en danger, mais vous pouvez mettre aussi en danger la vie des secouristes. L'ouragan Lee peut entraîner des conditions de conduite dangereuses. Limiter des déplacements aux besoins essentiels dans les zones à risque et adapter votre conduite aux conditions routières et météorologiques. Faites le bon choix. Restez chez vous et suivez l'évolution de la tempête en ligne. La province de Nouveau-Brunswick a créé une page web qui contient toutes sortes d'informations utiles et essentielles. gnb.ca/Oregon. Enfin, j'aimerais remercier les résidents, les entreprises, les administrations municipales et nos partenaires de s'être préparés. Vous jouez un rôle essentiel pour s'assurer la sécurité de nos gens. Merci.
Bonjour, good afternoon. NB Power has been actively preparing for the impacts of Hurricane Lee. We are anticipating outages and are ready to respond. Our Emergency Operations Center is now open, and we have over 700 individuals ready to support restoration. These resources include powerline technicians from NB Power and from other private organizations, damage assessors, logistics staff, customer care staff, and many more working in the shadows. They are being positioned in strategic locations in the province to respond safely and efficiently when outages occur. We are in contact with provincial emergency response partners and our neighboring utility partners and continue to coordinate response. We are also aware that the trees are currently in full foliage, and the saturated ground conditions increases the likelihood of trees falling. Knowing this, we have certified utility arborists prepared and on standby to assist our line workers in accessing our infrastructure and our lines. To reemphasize what my colleagues have already stated, New Brunswickers should also be prepared. Follow New Brunswick EMO's advice and recommendations, and do not take undue risk. Follow NB Power on our social media channels, as we will continue to share updates on the situation as it progresses. If outages happen, make sure to report them either online or by calling our customer care number. Storm preparation is something that NB Power works on year-round. We have learned from past experiences and are always improving our response and our grid's reliability. This includes proactive vegetation management, like widening our right-of-ways, strengthening our system in key areas, and using new tools to support our teams in restoration efforts. Finally, safety is the heart at everything we do. We are committed to responding both effectively and safely to any challenges that may arise in the days ahead. As soon as conditions are safe, our teams will be in the field to begin restoration efforts. Pour finir, la sécurité est au cœur de tout ce que nous faisons. Nous nous engageons à répondre de manière efficace et en toute sécurité à tous les défis qui pourraient se présenter dans les jours à venir. Dès que les conditions seront suffisamment stables, nos équipes se rendront sur le terrain pour commencer les efforts de rétablissement. Please be safe, s'il vous plaît, soyez prudents.
Good afternoon, fellow New Brunswickers. As you heard here today, I want to reiterate the importance of following the recommendations of our great team here at EMO and the work that's been done really since Monday in relation to this storm that is now going to be bearing down upon us shortly. I do want to thank the team that we have here. EMO has done a great job, Kyle, Pete, and the whole crew. as well as NB Power for their quick get readiness in relation to the storm that's coming. Nicole, thank you for being here today and updating us on NB Power, and of course for the Premier for his steadfast support all along as we prepare for this event. As I said yesterday, I think it's very important that we don't underestimate what this could be. I again just look back to the recent history of the storms that we have had here in New Brunswick and the impact they've had on all of our lives. Dorian, Fiona, and even a few years back with Arthur. I know people were without power for, up to 2 weeks and even longer. So be ready. And I noticed today that people are going out to the stores, getting some necessities and supplies, which to me is a good sign. It means people are preparing and taking this serious, which is important. So I want to encourage New Brunswickers to continue to do that, and please, please, please do not underestimate what the storm could be, especially in relation to potential power outages. Of course, as Kyle said, make sure you have your 72-hour emergency kit, food, water, batteries, portable radio, your medications. Not a bad idea to have some cash on hand if needed during that time. And always think, too, with food safety in mind, with power outages, with refrigeration, and to ensure that, your food doesn't go bad. Do not put yourself in danger by heading to the coastline. We heard earlier today that the coastal areas could see winds of up to 120 kilometers an hour. That is significant, and that can be very, very dangerous. So now is not the time to sightsee. Sit at home, check your phone, watch the event unfold in a safe place, because you don't only put yourself at risk, but you may put first responders at risk trying to help you in a worst case scenario. So please stay away from the coast during this event. Again, I want to just reiterate my appreciation to the team, and I feel very confident that they are fully prepared for this event, and for NB Power as well. And I know we have Jill here as well from Environment Canada. So again, don't underestimate, be prepared, and I believe New Brunswickers are taking this serious, so I'm encouraged to see that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour. You can see by the support that we have here today how seriously we're taking this event. We don't want to look back and think, well, could have we done something else? Could have we done something more? We can always do as much as we possibly can, and if we don't need it, well, okay. But let's not take any chances. I want to thank the New Brunswick Emergency Measures Organization, NB Power, telecommunication companies, and all other critical infrastructure partners who are working hard to minimize the damage that may come from this storm. I know that today it's easy to look outside and think that, well, we may avoid the worst of this storm. But as you've heard the experts talk about here, about what is potentially going to happen, we cannot stress enough that this is a calm before the eventual storm, and that now is a time to get prepared, but that time is running out. As my colleague says, ensure you have enough supplies, food, water, medications for at least 72 hours. While we expect the bulk of the bad weather to hit tomorrow and Sunday, that doesn't mean that everything will happen during that time period. I want to remind all New Brunswickers how important it is to be prepared and listen to officials for the latest information and advice as it becomes available. Comme c'est le cas pour toutes les tempêtes majeures, espérons que tout ira pour le mieux, mais préparons-nous au pire. Over the coming days, please continue to monitor the various resources available and stay up to date. Follow the New Brunswick Emergency Measures Organization Facebook and Twitter accounts. Visit EMO's website at gnb.ca/EMO or call 511 for any road closure information. S'il vous plaît, tenez-vous informés et demeurez en sécurité. We're doing everything we can to make sure we are ready to handle the urgent situations that may come out of the storm and any cleanup that is required after it happens. Our 12 regional EMO offices are ready to work with the local authorities in those areas as needed, and we have a backup communication system in place to make sure people can stay informed. But, and I can't say this enough, we need New Brunswickers and visitors to our province to do their part, be prepared, and keep themselves as safe as possible. Do not put yourselves in harm's way, and caution others, certainly, to do the same. In addition to getting ready for this storm, I know people are concerned about the fire at the American Iron and Metal Ames Scrapyard in St. John. Right now, the focus continues to be to completely extinguish the fire and ensuring everyone's safety. I know people are angry and want answers about what happened and how it could happen. And I want to reiterate what I said last night. There will be a full investigation into this fire, and there will be no consideration of resumption of operations until we have more information about what took place and what can be done in the future to ensure this facility can indeed operate safely. So we will not leave any stone unturned to understand what is required. As we head into the weekend, I want to remind everyone one more time, take whatever precautions you can to prepare and to keep yourself safe. We've seen it before. This is a time when the Brunswickers come together to check on loved ones, check on that elderly person who may be living alone, stay connected. They may be just down the street, but they can't get in touch with you. They may be a mile or two down the road in a rural community, but they aren't able to connect. So take care of each other, as we've always done in times of crisis. We can get through this, and we can minimize the damage to ourselves and others, but we need to be cognizant of the reality and the potential that this storm is bringing upon us. Thank you. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Premier Ministre. Thank you, Premier. Je tiens à remercier tous nos conférenciers. I'd like to thank all our podium speakers. Before I proceed with questions from members of the media, I'd like to notify everyone that Jill Maypia, warning preparedness meteorologist with Environment and Climate Change, is here in the room with us to answer any of your questions. Avant de passer aux questions des membres des médias, j'aimerais vous informer que Jill Maypia, météorologue de sensibilisation à alerte environnement et changement climatique Canada, est dans la salle pour répondre à des questions. We will be starting off first with Hurricane Lee questions, and then after that we could rotate for any other subjects. Nous répondons aux questions relatives à l'ouragan Lee, puis après on peut circuler ensuite à reprendre à d'autres sujets. We're going to start with Allison Sampson from CTV.
Hi, my question's for NB Power. Just wondering, I know you mentioned that you have crews prepared. Can you tell me, I know you mentioned how many, but just so that I have it all succinct, how many crews and where exactly have you stationed them at this time?
Yes, thank you very much. I apologize that I don't have the exact numbers of the crews and the exact locations for them at this time. I do know that talking with all the telecommunication providers, also with other stakeholders, that they have assured us that the crews are ready and they are actually staging within their guidelines. So if there's further questions on that, I'd be great to answer that at a separate time.
Ms. Poirier, do you want to answer?
Thank you. So we have approximately 300 crews. We're basically staging them in the southern part of the province where we see the most potential damage occurring. So in the St. John, in the Fundy Isles, those areas specifically. So hopefully that helps you.
And just what advice would you have specifically from NB Power about what should people do when they lose power tomorrow? Do you have any specific advice for them from your perspective?
I think the primary thing was to make sure that we know. So to give us a call or to actually log in their outage on the online website. So that would be critical, and obviously being prepared with their 72-hour kits, so ensuring that they have the ability to, have food and water and all those things with regards to the outage if it does happen to go beyond 72 hours or 72 hours.
Just to keep going for one quick more thing. What should the expectation be for power restoration? when you have crews in those areas already?
I can't really answer that question because it's really hard depending on the damage. So we really have to wait until we see what the damage assessors would tell us after the storm actually goes through, and then we could make that determination.
Before we pass on, I forgot to say that each reporter will have one question and a quick follow-up. You do have the right to pose your question in the official language of your choice. Chaque journaliste aura une question et une question rapide suivie. Vous avez toujours le droit de poser vos questions dans la langue officielle de votre choix. Savannah Odd, BNI.
My question, I guess, is for both NB Power and for public safety, but is there any difference in your preparation approach this time compared to instances like Arthur and Fiona when we saw a lot of damage? Has there been any change in the approach based on what you learned through that?
Thank you, Savannah, for that question. One thing about EMO is they're very well prepared in terms of the process. While each disaster is a little bit different, the methodology that EMO uses really is very consistent, and they have those high standards to ensure that they react appropriately to depending on the severity of the incident. So I wouldn't say it changes a whole lot. I don't know, Kyle, if you can add anything to that, but I think EMO does a great job, the team, and both in preparing and then when the incident happens in trying to mitigate the effects of the incident. So the process is pretty much the same.
I guess also NB Power. I guess time around to make sure that things are restored maybe faster, or that things are restored.
No, I would say, from every storm, we actually take those learnings. We always do a lessons learned after each event, and whatever learnings that we have, we try and improve for future events. So, but pretty much the process is very standard, and we follow very closely with EMO, and so, yeah.
Thank you. Quick one.
I guess I'm just wondering, for the Premier probably, we don't want to look back, or we don't want to be looking back and think we could have been doing more. I guess could you just speak to maybe some of the steps that have already been taken, and why, I guess, certain things you might want to emphasize ahead of this weekend so that folks are taking the right steps?
Thank you for the question, Sven. I think that what you're seeing here, as I indicated at the beginning, is the magnitude of this very presentation about the seriousness we're taking of this event. The messaging has gone out this week, and as we learn more about the tracking and where it's going to end up and the widespread of the impacts. So even though it seems to be tracking a little bit further away from Nova Scotia, it's going to hit the Charlotte region and the shoreline of Bay of Fundy hard. And we're going to see a broad rain, heavy rain, pockets of heavy rain throughout the entire province. So we were asking people not to look at it and say the track's a little different. Look how wide it is, and that track basically shows a range of where it could go. But it very much indicates that anywhere in the province could get hit hard. Yes, it does look to be more in the southern region, southwestern region, but it's going to cross the province and hit in the eastern shore as well as it crosses. So I think that we just are telling people, you may think you're going to miss it. Don't plan on missing it. We've seen strategic downpours in our province like we hadn't seen before. I think of the Northwest and the Emegency heavy rains and washing out bridges. So we know that these pockets of downpours, and we're seeing today, and I think this latest that I heard today was in relation to the size of the potential downpour, like 100 millimeters or something in that range. So that has gone up, what I've seen over the last while. So everyone needs to think, okay, what does that look like in my community or in my yard? What things that aren't tied down that I could move and put in a safe spot or secure? And what trees could come down or fall on my car or fall on the house? And I know it's just being cognizant of the wind direction that's coming, what's exposure there is in that wind direction. And I think what we're seeing is the officials are doing that all over. And just as a comment about we're strategically positioning people, particularly those in NB Power, the line crews that are going to be on the scene the minute there's a problem. But just don't take it for granted. We wouldn't be going through this if we didn't believe that the potential here is very real. And the devastation can be very real. So let's not just hope for the best. I guess always hope for the best, but let's not count on it. Let's just expect the worst and do whatever we can to mitigate.
Thank you. Vicky Hogarth, CHCO TV.
Thank you, Bruce. Given that coastal Charlotte County will be getting apparently the brunt of the storm, can you tell us a little bit about what additional resources you're sending to this area in particular, and also if Grand Manan, which is obviously quite remote, will be included in those resources?
From an ME Power perspective, I don't have the exact numbers, but we're actually sending additional crews to all of those areas in the southern part of the province, as well as Moncton, Bouctouche, and to the Premier's point, there's a number of areas that are obviously in that track. Grand Manan is definitely included in that as well.
Ms. Hogarth, do you have a quick follow-up?
I do. I'm wondering if the meteorologist can provide an overview on what we can expect here in coastal Charlotte County over the next 24 hours, even into Sunday, and if there will be any more serious things due to the schedule of the tide.
Yes, for the Grand Manan area, the Charlotte County, we are anticipating the rain to develop tonight, and it will come in hard and fast, as well as strong winds will be associated with that rain. We are expecting those northeasterly winds to come in as well all day tomorrow, and then we will see a slow improvement overnight, and then into Sunday morning we should see that wind shift around back to the westerly on the backside of Lee. And in terms of with the waves and possible storm surge and associated with the tide, we are monitoring. We do know that high tide is around 2 a.m., between 1 and 2 a.m. overnight, and that right now doesn't quite correspond with the arrival of Lee, which is expected to be tomorrow afternoon. So there's a little bit of offset there, so that's kind of helping in the height of the tides in that area. But we are monitoring, again, any sort of timing. If it decides to be a little bit delayed, we are monitoring the tides and associated surge with the Lee. That being said, right now we still only can see high waves in the area and not surge. And just the difference between the two is waves, they go in and they come out. A surge would just be a large wave. The water level comes up and it won't come down. So we aren't seeing that with this particular system in Lee, especially in the Grand Manan area.
Thank you. Natalie Sturgeon with Global TV. Steve McKinley with the Toronto Star. Hannah Rutherham with CBC. Ms. Rutherham?
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry about that. For people that live along the coastline, what should their course of action be in the event of coastal erosion?
Yes, Miss, thank you very much. There's really nothing that people can do prior or during an event like this, but post-event, if they've noticed any kind of erosion, especially that which threatens the safety of themselves or their community, they can report that up through to us. We have recovery services that are available that can help, and safety inspectors who can respond to that. So yes, it's just a matter of making sure that if anything is noted, to please report it to NBEMO so we can assist.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms.
And
Rutter?
for my follow-up, will most of the guidance for Hurricane Lee be coming from the provincial EMO, or will it be split between local EMOs, just in terms of where people should be focusing on in the event of needing to conserve their phone data?
Oh, yes, that's another great question. We've created a one-page for the Government of New Brunswick, and you can achieve that by going through gnb.ca. The link is also available through our EM partners locally. So I would encourage people to visit the sites now, and that way they can identify that web page, and then they can use that as their primary source of information.
Thank you. Justin Dupuis avec Radio-Canada.
Pas de questions, merci.
Merci beaucoup. Bonne fin de semaine. Sarah with Canadian Press.
My first question is Mike Tutton here at the Canadian Press. So if how concerned are you, this is for the EMO, I think, about coastal flooding due to tidal surge, whether it be in Charlotte County or particularly as it gets right up the bay into, of course, Sackville area, where we have vulnerable dikes?
Yes, thank you. Tidal surge is always a concern for an event like this, but based upon the current predictions that we're seeing, I do not believe that we have a significant threat like we would have had with Fiona and the likes at that level of a storm. So again, Mother Nature has a vote in this, and we would have to just see how it unfolds. But at this point right now, I don't see any difference in our approach, whether it's a Category 1 or a post-tropical storm. The main thing is for people to be prepared to deal with whatever situation evolves from the event.
Mr. Tutton, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you. For the Premier, they're probably according to the CRTC, about 15,000 New Brunswickers that don't have adequate cell phone service at this time. And of course, people driving through areas that perhaps can't get emergency alerts. Do you share with Tim Houston deep concern, a concern about this, and as we head into a storm like this?
Yes, certainly. It is a concern. And I think part of us, in terms of changing our overall structure of governance across the province in relation to the districts, it was to have a better handle on where people lived and have a better local understanding of how to connect with them. And that may mean driving to their home or making connection. We found in previous events, one of these issues where we didn't know the conditions that people had because we didn't have good access or we didn't have good information about where they were. So there is that concern, and cell phone coverage is a problem. We are working with our providers. I know there's certainly some major infrastructure programs that are in place that both the major providers are working towards, and we're pursuing timelines and looking at the coverage across this province. I mean, because we're seeing that coverage and cell phone service doesn't only happen in rural areas. We're seeing it right along our main highways, where we're having drop calls that are significant. And it seems to be even a little worse than it was. So I'm not sure what's happening, but I assure you that we will get to the bottom of it.
Thank you. We're now going to turn, we know we have some other questions related to other subjects, so we're going to turn to Jacques Poitras with CBC.
Question to follow?
A quick follow. Very quick.
Premier, can you just tell us, I guess, about the decision you announced this morning and what clicked in your mind to make the decision now or say it now?
So as Bruce mentioned at the beginning of this, I don't want to lose focus on this event that's coming forward, and I don't want to make this about anything more than the situation. I've had a number of discussions with individuals over the past week, certainly prior to this event materializing and coming forward. The decision point sent out this morning was the fact that because of the many discussions I've had, it would become a known fact at some point and likely over the weekend. And so let's just put it out there and be done with it. There's been a lot of back and forth about whether I would make a decision to stay or not. So it was to just end that debate before it became a story without my confirmation.
Yes, and I don't mean to take the focus off the hurricane, but we were told we had to ask the questions at this event, so.
But you don't
so
have to
that's
ask
why I'm
many,
asking.
right? We'll have all kinds of time to talk after this event's over, so that's where I want to kind of stay.
Sure, but just quickly, your announcement didn't mention the date of the next election. When will the date of the next election be?
Well,
Plans?
certainly the only date that's confirmed at this point is the one in October of next fall. But we all know of kind of the situation that currently exists within the legislature and within our government. So obviously that remains a big concern.
Alex Villeneuve, Radio-Canada.
Oui. Traduction, si tu parles au micro. Je peux poser mes questions en français? Oui, pose. On a des micros en haut. Ah, je ne voyais pas, c'est bon. OK. Est-ce que vous pensez encore être la bonne personne pour convaincre les francophones de voter pour vous aux prochaines élections si vous vous représentez?
Well, certainly I hope that we will see candidates from all over the province be the right candidates for their region. And I would say that in doing so, every candidate anywhere needs to look at the results and the success of many of the projects that we've put in place, the growth of the province and how it's moving forward and how it's doing that everywhere. And also how we've represented the entire province and where we have focused on improvements. So yeah, I'm quite confident that candidates that are interested in the best interest of how we move our province forward will certainly be willing and able to participate in an election to be part of this continued success of New Brunswick.
Ouais, je veux vraiment vous entendre sur les francophones, l'électorat francophone. Il n'a pas voté pour vous aux 2 dernières élections, ni aux 3 élections partielles cet hiver. Est-ce que vous pensez être encore le bon chef du Parti conservateur qu'il faut pour aller chercher cet électorat-là?
Well, I think we've seen divisions in our province, north and south, for some time now. And if you go back in the history of New Brunswick, you'll see a continuation of that for generations. And it's unfortunate because it seems that although our interests should be collectively aligned on what's best for the province and how we move forward, there's always been a political division. And I would say in many cases it's fostered politically, which is unfortunate. So my goal is to continue to represent New Brunswickers across the entire province, and hopefully, you know, that certainly will be seen for the reality that it is.
Adam Harris, Brunswick News.
Thank you, Bruce. Premier Higgs, congrats on your decision today to lead your party into the next election. On that, where are you with the 6 so-called rebels that voted with the opposition on Policy 713? Do you hope any of them reoffer under your banner, and would you sign their nomination papers if they did?
Well, I think that all I can say to that is you know, some of them have obviously already made that decision. They did that prior to me ever being declaring my continuing as leader. So, you know, it remains to be seen where we go from there. But I think it was pretty clear that several have made that decision.
Quick follow.
Yeah, on another subject, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced the removal of the GST on new rental construction yesterday. Ontario, BC, Newfoundland and Labrador, they've all announced they'll eliminate the provincial tax on new rental construction. I wondered if you're interested in that, if you'll remove the tax on those new construction builds.
Well, as I think you likely would expect, I'm not one that jumps out to the latest kind of declaration from the federal government. I like to understand the details behind what they're proposing, and I also like to understand the implication on the Canadian taxpayer, and particularly the New Brunswick taxpayer. So I want to get more details on what is being proposed. It's got to be more than a headline. It's got to be some substance. We have changed the tax policy on properties and new builds in relation to apartments and such to kind of be progress taxation, which allows them to build and not be paying the full taxes until they've actually got occupancy. We've already looked at that. Our housing initiative that we put in place, we'll evaluate the federal proposal based on the housing plans that we have, and we'll see where it fits and if it fits. And at that point, make a decision if it makes sense.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you very much. That concludes today's update. Voilà la fin de notre mise à jour. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Bonne fin de semaine.